welcome back everyone. It's time to go balls deep into My Hero Academia chapter 331. Today we finally learn the truth behind the most overpowered, broken, gosh damn busted quirk known to mankind.
What is that?
That's right, anything you want is basically yours with the new Order Quirk. In fact, it's not even a quirk at this point, it's the stand.
What?
Stand.
What are you talking about, man?
Surprise.
Shut up, it is a JoJo reference.
This is now Stars and Stripes' bizarre Drencher controlling the world with her new Order Quirk. Or at least that's how it's gonna be once, One For All takes over and gets his grubby hands on this quirk. All For One's gonna introduce the most insane social credit system you've ever seen.
Now before we continue any further, I want to say thank you to today's sponsor,
ExpressVPN!
Right now, you can get a special discounted subscription of 3 extra months for free!
That's right baby, for free!
By clicking our link in the description and pinned comment below. We've been using ExpressVPN now for quite some time and life wouldn't be the same without it. That's because we're in the UK, meaning we have limited options for streaming. But thanks to ExpressVPN, we have access to limited region exclusive content. With the click of a button, we can change our location and we can access thousands of new shows from Japan, America, and even more regions, meaning we can binge all the latest anime no matter what. Now, that's not all. Have you ever loaded up incognito mode and searched up your favorite waifu thinking, oh nobody else will know?
No.
Well, you're wrong. Your browsing history can still be logged by your internet service provider and can potentially be sold to third-party companies depending on the country you live in. But that's where our friends over at ExpressVPN have you covered. There isn't even a drop in internet speed due to their VPN server locations. So start by clicking on our link in the description, expressvpn.com/abd. You can get 3 months for free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no reason not to give it a go. Alright, let's get back to the video.
Okay, so we begin right where we left off, with Stars and Stripes being blown away by the explosion. An explosion so large, it created a hole in the clouds. Stars notices and comments, his hair suddenly grew.
What's this punk's deal?
Well, Missy, our boy Shigaraki has acquired the drip. There's nothing more to it, and there's no way to survive a dripped out demon lord with a scent for blood. So, bye-bye.
Oh my god.
For those of you who are actually lost and kind of confused on how the frick does Shigaraki grow his hair and why does he look a bit different? Well, he actually did go through a transformation. We're pretty much being close to complete. All For One is now part of Shigaraki and Shigaraki is part of All For One. At the same time, they still somehow managed to have their distinct personality, which now kind of ultimately created a new being. Henceforth, I'm going to call this being the Demon Lord. This was actually the intentions of All For One, as seen in his flashbacks with his brother, of him stating the comic books they read as children is now becoming a reality, where the villains will actually win in the end, with him becoming the Demon Lord of the world. So now this new Demon Lord Shigaraki literally dripped out, standing freefall on one of the aircrafts, states that he has now clocked on the new order's limitation. He says it may be the strongest quirk, but there are still limits to it. I'm happy that Horikoshi is actually addressing this, as there was a lot of controversy previously surrounding Stars and Stripes quirk, as it seemed completely busted and there were much better ways it could be utilized. But in this chapter, it is revealed that the new Order Quirk was kept secret by the US government and the only public information accessible about it is from what the public saw when it was in use. This now makes complete sense as to why her quirk seemed to be so OP. This was because it was sensationalized and exaggerated as a conspiracy theory and rumors by the mass public. Funny enough, the same thing happens in our own world with conspiracies. We see something with very little evidence or fact behind it. One person comes to their own conclusion and that is passed on, and then that's passed on to somebody else. And like a good game of Chinese whispers, things over time gets added in which are not true. But because it's a rumor that has grown to such a large scale, it becomes a fact. Like I could definitely see a scenario in the My Hero world where Stars is seen with super strength saving one person, then she's controlling lasers to save another, and then she can fly on and do something crazy on another day. Now as each person is seeing their own unique version of Stars' quirk, it gets muddled up because different groups are saying she's capable of achieving a multitude of different things, coming to their own conclusion as to how it works, because that's all they can do, as the truth behind it is kept a secret by the government. This is why New Order ended up being known publicly to be the most broken quirk known to mankind, and why some of the information we originally had on it wasn't 100% accurate. Now, of course, it's still overpowered. This chapter even mentions how it's hardly even a quirk at this point, but like the Demon Lord caught onto, it still has its shortcomings. This is because All For One Shigaraki knows what it's like to have a large pool of quirks to use for himself. He's experienced enough to know that her quirk, like many, must have a drawback. For example, her super strength rule. Shigaraki mentions how it must have a limit because when she punched him in the last chapter, if she could make her strength unlimited, he would have died in one hit, but he didn't. In fact, he came out relatively unscratched in the grand scheme of things. He also points out that Stars could have just said something like, if someone touches the air in a specific area, that person will die instantly. This was the very question we brought up last chapter, and I'm quite happy Horikoshi addressed it. Demon Lord Shigaraki likens her quirk to a barometer, where she can position things as she wishes. One side representing 0 allows her to completely strip all power and properties of what she targets, like ordering the air to not exist, or a person's heart to stop. The other end, which has a limit representing what she can give to her targets, for instance giving herself super strength. On this end of the barometer, she can't surpass her limits, so she will not be able to give herself godlike strength. Also, you may remember in our last review, we talked about why we think Star's quirk did not work on Shigaraki when she called out his name. And what do we know? Balls, the prediction quirk came true. The reason her quirk did not work on him was because Shigaraki doesn't know who he actually is at this very moment. He is conflicted regarding his identity, as he doesn't know whether he's Tomura Shigaraki, All For One, or Shimaru Tenko, or a mix of all of them. Anyways, the New Order quirk works differently depending on whether the target is a biological being or not, and the difference is the process of calling the target's name. Like we said, Stars must know the name of her target, and more specifically the name they identify as, whereas for a non-biological object such as the lasers or the air, she can easily impose a rule on it based on her own perception of it, essentially rewarding creativity, which we see later on in the chapter when Star uses the atmosphere around her to create a huge, giant weaponized version of herself. Now, this is not the only thing, as our Demon Lord also begins to question all the intel he previously had about New Order, such as if she really can just impose only 2 rules at a time. And it seems to be, well,
I don't know.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Stars and Stripes later is seen using 2 distinct orders aside from herself, leaving us questioning whether 2 really is her limit. In the last chapter, she stated she can only set up 2 rules for 2 targets at one time, where one of the targets is always herself. In chapter 331, we later see Star controlling the lasers and the solidified atmosphere at the same time, which are 2 separate rules on top of her supposed super strength rule, which she always keeps on. So in total, 3 rules? Otherwise, Stars was just lying and got rid of her super strength to execute the second order. But then how the heck is she keeping herself on top of this plane?
That don't make no sense.
Regardless, Demon Lord Shigaraki, getting super turned on thinking he will have this quirk soon, is thinking on all the other limitations it might have, and whether or not it could work on his dog Monchan, who was tragically killed by his decay as a boy. But this thought process showcases that the Demon Lord we see is in fact a mesh of All For One, Shigaraki and Tenko, as stated in chapter 330. The Tenko side is still living in the past, likely being a personality of the boy who just killed his family, whereas Shigaraki is the personality of the person who did not get help from anyone around him when he suffered. This separation of personalities is important to recognize, as eventually we will see Deku diving deep into the mind of the Demon Lord and save the little boy he saw crying as he declared back in chapter 305. This is all of Horikoshi's big break brain foreshadowings. Anyways, whilst Demon Lord Shigaraki is thirsting over the thought of getting his hands on her quirk, she is still confused as to why her rule didn't work. This is when Star finally realizes that he now is a threat to the whole world. She states she will pulverize this monster in ways that are illegal in Japan. She resorts to the most American answer known to man. I know all of you guys are thinking it. You guys are gosh darn right. She says she's gonna nuke him.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Okay, I don't know if it was just me, but when I read this, I found it kind of trippy, you know, considering the history between American nukes and Japan. But anyways, Stars and Stripes then contacts Commander Akbar, which is an obvious Easter egg to Admiral Akbar from Star Wars. We even seen him later in the chapter and they look exactly the same.
It's a trap!
Seriously though, Horikoshi is a huge fan of Star Wars. In his awful comments, he mentions his love for it. Also, there are countless references to Star Wars in My Hero Academia, from Tatooine Station to Kiyoshi Shopping Mall Wookiees. I can mention more, which probably deserves a separate video. If you guys want that, then smash that like button and ding that notification bell. Stars then asks her pilot if she could continue to use them as her foothold whilst they're in the air, then proceeds to call them her brothers. This showcases the closeness and the camaraderie between Stars and her squadron, where they consider themselves brothers in arms and literally ride or die as they charge towards the Demon Lord. After making enough space around her, Stars then activates a new order to turn the freaking atmosphere into a giant version of herself that's 1,000 times her size and commands it to fist bump the earth. Now, since the atmosphere can't exactly be seen by the naked eye, Shigaraki couldn't even see the giant before him, but definitely felt the pressure. Get it?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
For reals though, I'm surprised that Shigaraki couldn't see the outline of this freaking enormous, gigantic atmosphere, because even though the atmosphere is part of its surroundings, Stars and Stripe, by concentrating it together, increased its density, so it does in fact have a shape and form. And it works like this: as Stars' physical body winds up her left cross punch, her giant form follows suit, sending shock waves in the air, causing Demon Lord Shigaraki flying. But that wasn't the end of it. As Star noted earlier, trying to accumulate damage on a guy with the regeneration quirk is useless, and without knowing his true name, her quirk cannot be executed. She then preps to clap her hands, which legit splits the clouds in the surrounding area.
I like it, cut G.
This showcases just how powerful her atmospheric giant version of herself is. With just a clap, she unlocked Conqueror's Haki and split the heavens asunder. But this wasn't enough. Shigaraki was still breathing, so Stars tells her squadron to fire their lasers at her, which then she orders the multitude of lasers to harden and concentrate into one massive beam. This ginormous laser beam is then given to her atmospheric giant to be used as a personal lightsaber. Well, technically it's more like a spear, but Star raises it high above Shigaraki, slamming it down onto him like a lightning bolt, which is a nod to the name of the move, Coronanus. How the frick do you pronounce this? I'm butchering the heck out of it. Basically, this move is named after hey, you guys are taking the piss. Ptolemy Ceraunus, king of Macedon, whose name Kyranus is the Greek word for thunderbolt, which actually does make a lot of sense, as she looks like a freaking goddess with a thunderbolt in her hands, striking right into the heart of the Demon Lord. As Stars shoves her lightsaber into Demon Lord Shigaraki, her pilot tells her to keep the laser at him till he burns. However, Stars, knowing that Endeavor's fire didn't burn him during the war, she plans for something to end any possibilities for survival, where this move was merely a slow down tactic to keep Shigaraki in place. Coincidentally, with perfect timing, she gets a call from Akbar telling her that the nukes are on the way. But as he informs her of this good news, he also goes on a rant telling her how much he's fed up of dealing with her negligence, and that her actions of breaking the rules this time won't just result in getting her hero license stripped away. Like, think about it. Stars and Stripes is basically ordering a strike on another nation's airspace. This isn't even approved by the Japanese government. It's not just illegal, but also an abuse of power and authority. However, I feel like Horikoshi is keeping it real. America doesn't give a shit about abuse of power. They're literally the #1 military country in the world. We then find out that these airstrikes are called Tiamat, which, by the way, yes, I have done the research for you guys, so you don't have to. Tiamat is based on a Mesopotamian goddess of the sea, associated with primordial chaos. The overall arching theme being played here is that the Demon Lord is claiming his new position as a god over man. Stars clearly represents the opposition, being a goddess in her own right. First with her attack Uranus, and now with her ordering Tiamat. This weapon is definitely not a joke, so making this decision is literally Stars going all out. And though General Akbar complains on Stars' selfish nature, he states that's the very reason America shines. Akbar goes on to state how not even All Might was capable of defeating this villain, and this is now her chance to surpass him by doing so. We then get more information about Stars and Stripes, revealing her real name Kathy, and then we also see photos of her with All Might as a child. This is clearly an attempt at humanizing her character to make us, the readers, feel more attached and emotionally invested in her, so that her death in the next coming chapters feel more impactful. I mean, well, I hate to break it to you guys. In this chapter, we've seen a flashback of her and her co-pilot agreeing to them laying their lives on the line together. You're telling me these pilots are gonna survive?
No.
They die and she's saying, I'm gonna die too? Bruh, I'm telling you, they're all dead.
Man, I'm dead.
And there's also other slight foreshadowings. The way this was set up is most definitely a battle till the death. It might be an obvious death, but it's still really good and important one, as the effect it will have on the story will completely shift the power balance between the heroes and villains, leading into the final fight, which will make for a much more impactful climax to the story. And let's be real, every time America tries to help another country, that shit goes sideways. It will be kind of poetic for her to lay down her life in the attempts to save Japan. But in the end, the Demon Lord rises anew with a godly quirk that befits his sovereignty. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Will the Demon Lord acquire this new Order Quirk, or will Stars and Stripes set herself to 0 with no quirks before that even happens? With that guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and ding that notification bell to stay updated.